online, and kind of led me to open up a little bit more to the public. So what I do is I'm a physical therapist, licensed in Hungary, and here I'm a massage therapist, and I do active release. Um, I have all sorts of different other soft tissue manipulation and under my belt, also like fascial release. So mainly here I do active release, which is releasing adhesions and tissue, fascial um, adhesions and connective tissues. So freeing up movements, helping you to relieve your pain. So that's what mainly I do, and I give you corrective exercises. So I help your kind of recovery and to get rid of your pain. And today I have Rosie with me, who is a physical therapist as well, and she is. I mean, she used to work here in Guam, not anymore because she's taking off, but she used to work as a pediatric physical therapist at early intervention, which is working with special need kids. But I let her explain what she did, and we would like to leave some feedback her about her experience on Guam.
So like she said, my name's Rosie. I am a physical therapist. I started off in adult orthopedics, but then I switched over to pediatrics, and I got the opportunity to come to Guam about 3 years ago to as a contract worker to work for Guam Early Intervention, which, as Adrian said, is the younger population. So I work with birth to 3, special needs, and then I do see a handful of kids in the school system as well. But most of the kiddos that I saw are birth to 3. I work with children that have cerebral palsy and Down syndrome, spina bifida, some medical issues. All of them are delayed. So just to give a little bit of feedback, early intervention is a federal program. They have it in all states and territories, and it's totally free to all families that have any children that you think may or may not have some delays. So you can go to any of your local pediatricians, or here you can go to public health, any of your doctors, and even yourself or your family member. Daycares, they can all call your local early intervention programs and refer the children. And then all of our staff will come to, not all of us, and we'll set up teams, and somebody will come to your home versus you going to a clinic, and we will do an evaluation and decide if your child is eligible for services. And then we will continue to do, if they are, we'll continue to do visits in your home. So it's very convenient, it's totally free, it's voluntary, and it is a great opportunity to set up kids for resources. The program includes, so I'm physical therapy, but we also have speech therapy, we have contracted occupational therapy, we have special ed teachers, we have social workers, we have contracted hearing and vision services. And like I said, it's all free, and all you have to do is anybody can call and do a referral and see if your kids need any services so that we can help keep them on track with their developmental skills, and keep them healthy and strong and happy and functional and all of that good stuff.
So what's going to happen with those kids who you were visiting here in Guam?
So as I mentioned, I was here on contract for 3 years. As of now, they have not been able to find a replacement for me, but they are working on trying to find somebody. So they're at least in the beginning stages of trying to find some kind of replacement. It sounds like whoever is going to replace me is not going to be like a full-time person like I was as part of the department. I think what they're going to do is they're going to contract with one of the local clinics, so the families will have to take their kids to the clinic, versus, like I mentioned, typically we want to have them in what we call a natural environment, so the kids are in their homes where they're comfortable and they know where their toys are, and they know where their, everything's familiar, so they will act like they normally do. And we will coach families on helping parents how to implement different strategies to help their kids achieve whatever goals that the parents have set for their child. So although it sounds like there's a possibility for these kids to get services in the clinics, it's not going to be the same style of how classic early intervention is supposed to run. So that's, it's a pro and a con. It's not going to be as teamwork friendly, but at least they'll have something.
What do you see, like, the needs as far as special needs care?
I think here on Guam, there's a decent amount of special needs. So again, I'm in the Birth to 3 program, and in the past 3 years, I've seen a total of 82 kids. So I've evaluated 82 children. Some of them I've seen for, maybe 6 months. The majority of them I've seen for years. Some of the kids I started with when I first got here, and then ended up continuing with them until they transferred into the school system, and I continued on with them. So some of those Birth to 3 kiddos are now in kindergarten, and I've been with them for the full 3 years. And so there's a decent amount of children on Guam that have some special needs, and of course I'm sure there's plenty, especially on the south side, that might not know about our program or that there are resources out there. I think education in general about special needs is pretty low on Guam, and I think there's just not as much, there's not a lot of exposure, there's not a lot of education, there's not a lot of awareness, and so people think that it's not a need, but it's because they don't really know that there are these kids and babies in their homes that don't really come out much because they don't have, there's a little bit of stigma here, but also they don't have proper equipment here because it's difficult to get equipment here on Guam. It's extremely expensive. We were talking about this earlier. A lot of companies don't ship to Guam. If they do ship to Guam, it's like an extra $800, which families can't afford. The equipment itself is already probably, $6,000 to $10,000. Your local insurance companies won't pay for it. So that leaves a lot of kids at home. I have a kiddo that I started with 3 years ago. He has cerebral palsy, pretty low functioning, still working on kind of like, he doesn't even have good head control. And we can't find him something to sit in. So he's been laying on his back for he's going to be 5 in November. And he just lays on his back and stares at the ceiling. And he goes to a really nice daycare, and they're really supportive. They help him as much as they can, but in a daycare setting, there's other kids, and they don't have any equipment to put him in, so he just kind of lays on his back, which is not ideal. So next year he'll be going to kindergarten, and the school system will provide him some equipment at that time. But until then, those 5 years until he gets there, there's not really a lot of resources for him.
Yes. So what I would like to get out of this little video chat, what we're doing is, whoever listens and whoever knows someone who has a special need child, just bring awareness. There is a help out there here on Guam, and there is a support crew a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are options, and if they come out a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Then actually they could improve the situation for these kids, because whoever is here on island from the States, and they know these kids can be more active and a little bit more social. They can have a little bit more of a life experience, and so as the families. So I would like to just voice it out a little bit.
Yeah, I think that people don't know that there are children like this, and then they don't know that there's help for them or that there's hope for them. And with therapies, these kids can really thrive, and I've seen it with the kids that I've been working with. Maybe you see them at first, you're like, oh boy, this is going to be a tough one. And then we coach the families in doing some strategies, and they work on it, and these kids are thriving. And they might be a little, maybe they don't walk perfect, they might have a little bit of a limp, but they are functional. And the important thing is that kids should have the opportunity to be kids. They should be able to play. They should have the same opportunities as any other kid, not just because they're on GUAM they have to stay home. They should be able to have friends and be social, because that's all part of life and development and quality of life and happiness and all of that stuff too. But just because most of them are born with a certain disorder or dysfunction or whatever, they should still be able to have opportunities. And I would like to bring a little bit more opportunity and awareness to GUAM so that we can help these kids be a little bit more productive and functional and happy and all of that good stuff.
Do these special need kids actually have social area where they can go, or there are playport,
Right.
playground?
So Playport, actually, here's another piece of information if you guys didn't know. Playport, if your child is not walking yet, whether that be because they're too young or because they have some kind of developmental delay, they won't charge you. So that's really nice. So some of our families, we send to Playport, and it's nice for these kids to just see other typical kids, because they can look and be like, hey, look at that kid walking around. How do I figure that out? So I know that the library, I think it's Wednesday mornings, Agania Library will do storybook time.
Yes.
So some of our kids will do that. And then other than that, as far as I know, they don't have anything specifically set up.
Yeah.
I've tried to kind of get, hey, does this parent want to talk to this parent?
Yes.
And there's always a yes and a yes, but then nobody wants to make that first step. So I'm like, okay, it's like a blind date play date. So I did have one. This one said yes, but then this one didn't want to call, this one didn't call. That went on for a couple months. So I said, okay, let's all meet at Playport. So we all met at Playport, and it was awesome, and so that was really fun. And then I know that there's other programs here. So I did work for GUAM Early Intervention, but there's other programs like Carino and Basita. There's other programs that are very similar to ours. To be honest, I get a little bit confused on where the overlap is and where the separation is. So if you're interested in those, you might want to contact them separately, or you can email Adrian and I can give you that information, but you might want to contact them to get real details on the focus of each of their programs. But I know we have a good amount of overlap.
So where is, just let's repeat it again, where can they go to?
Yeah.
What's the contact?
GUAM Early Intervention is part of Department of Education. It's just the Birth to 3 program. And we are located at the main DOE building, which is in Tizen. Our referral number is 300, I think it's 5776. Let me just double check. While I'm double checking. And so, like I said, any person can call and give a referral. So yes, 300-5776. Just call and say, I have a daughter, a niece, a neighbor, a friend that has a child with, I'm not quite sure. They're not quite talking as well as I would like them to talk, or they're not quite moving like I would like them to move. And we'll send somebody over, do some evaluations, and if they qualify, then they're eligible for free services until they turn 3. At their 3rd birthday, there's potential for them to transfer to the Part B program, so the special ed program with the school system. And so they'll do another set of evaluations, and they could qualify at that time for continued services through the school system, and that goes from 3 to 21.
Is there any online support system, or is there any funds what they could actually reach? Do you know? They could apply for certain funds so they could get some equipment for the
as part of GUAM Early Intervention?
Mhm.
So GUAM Early Intervention is a fully federally funded program.
Mhm.
So the government gives our department money, and we distribute that as as we do.
Whoever applies. So you guys, the family has to apply for this program, right?
No, the family just calls in a referral. It's completely free for them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're
Mhm.
no charge at all. And then the government pays our program, who supports all of the staff and services. And Guam Early Intervention is 100% federally funded, whereas the Part B services, so 3 and above, is part local and part federal. So all of this, like, budget cuts and all that stuff, we're not affected because we have our own grant money from the government that is specifically only for Guam Early Intervention,
Okay, and everybody can use this program.
as long as they're eligible.
What's
So,
that?
so if we do like an evaluation and we have testing, if they are under, if they are under 70% of typical, so if they're showing delays,
Mhm.
then they can be eligible. If they have a diagnosis, they can be eligible. We also do services for children that we call at risk. So if they have, if the parents have some mental health stuff and
Yeah.
this child could be at risk, if there's domestic violence, any CPS kids we see, if some teenage moms, if we think that that might be a risk factor, we'll see all of those kids just as monitoring to make sure that they get all their developmental skills and they are on track, so that when they are in kindergarten, they're at the same level as all the other kids, so that everybody can succeed.
Mhm. And another question jumped into mind. So, what are the age groups? Because I know you were working with
Yeah, so mine is birth to
Yes.
3, and then the school system goes 3 to 21. So the 3, 4, and some 5-year-olds will be part of the preschool program. They call it preschool because of the age group, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're in a classroom. They could still get services at home. And then at 5, all children are required to go to kindergarten. So it doesn't matter if they have a diagnosis, or I know a lot of parents are a little bit nervous about sending their kids to school because they might not move well, or they might get made fun of, or whatever. And so parents are like, oh, well, we'll just keep them home. But it is requirement that at kindergarten age, all children, regardless of their functional needs, their intelligence, their motor skills, their health, they are required to go to school at age 5. So the goal of early intervention is to catch them up so that they'll be on track at that point. Neuroplasticity might be a big word for this chat, but when they're babies, their brain is easily changeable, moldable. So that's when we do the interventions. That's when you're going to have the biggest impact. So that's why we try to get them young. Because if you wait until they're 4, 5, 6 to start therapies, you've lost a big window of time that you may or may not ever get back.
Mm-hmm. So yes, this is a very important thing to catch.
Yeah.
So earlier is the better.
Yeah. I know there's a handful of doctors here that like to, just wait and see, just wait and see. That wait and see might be your window of time where you're actually going to make some change. So I know sometimes GUAM has a little bit of a passive personality, but you really got to get in there and say, no, I'm concerned about my child. I need to get, I need to check on this, or things like that. Again, parents can refer to our program directly, but a lot of times we want to make sure that the doctors are on board, because some of these kids might need some medical testing or medication or whatever to make sure that they're, that they're healthy.
And are those doctors aware of this program? So
there's a handful of doctors that refer several, like it's the same doctors over and over. I think most of them know about our program, but I think some of them are just like, oh, that baby's fine, just come back in 6 months. Well, that 6 months could have been really important.